The Boys of Sunsets were on top of the world. Their songs ruled the charts, and every night of their tour was sold out. Fans adored them, especially the lead singer, Max, with his striking green eyes and perfect smile. But behind the glamour and flashing lights, something sinister was creeping into their lives. It started during the second week of their European tour. After their show in Prague, weird things began happening. At first, it was little stuff, missing clothes, strange noises in their hotel rooms late at night. The band laughed it off, thinking maybe some overzealous fan had broken in or that they were just exhausted from the back-to-back shows. But then things escalated. One night, after a concert in an old, decaying theater in Budapest, Max noticed something strange in the backstage mirror. As he wiped the sweat from his face, he caught a glimpse of a shadow behind him, someone standing just out of sight. But when he turned around, there was no one there. He brushed it off until later that night. As they returned to their hotel, the rest of the band saw the same shadowy figure trailing behind them. Just an outline of something tall, dark, and constantly shifting, like smoke caught in a breeze. Whenever they tried to look directly at it, the figure would vanish, slipping back into the shadows, but it never left. After their next performance, the stage manager found scratches on the dressing room walls, long, deep gouges that hadn't been there before. The room was locked, and only the band had access. By now, the Boys of Sunsets were terrified, but they tried to keep going, chalking it up to paranoia and stress that changed in Berlin. Halfway through their biggest show of the tour, the stadium's lights cut out. For what felt like an eternity, the arena was swallowed in complete darkness. The audience gasped, and the boys stood frozen, unable to see anything. When the lights flickered back on, Max saw it again, the shadow, this time closer, standing in the wings of the stage. But this time it wasn't alone. The figure was joined by others, tall, distorted shapes with long, bony fingers and hollow eyes. They stared at the band, motionless, as the crowd screamed and cheered, oblivious to the horror unfolding right in front of them. Max could barely keep singing. His voice cracked and his heart raced as the figures began to drift toward the stage. The other band members saw them too now, eyes wide with fear. But the show had to go on. After the concert, the band was shaken. They rushed back to their hotel, but no matter where they went, the shadows followed. Each night they got closer. Each time they stayed longer. Dylan, the drummer. One morning his bed was empty, his phone left behind, the sheets cold. No one heard him leave, and his things were untouched. Next was Ryan, the bassist. He vanished from his hotel room in the middle of the night, leaving behind deep scratches on the walls, just like the ones backstage. Max was the last one left. On the final night of the tour, Max locked himself in his hotel room, determined not to leave until daylight. He didn't sleep. His eyes never left the door, but just before dawn, as the first hint of sunlight crept through the curtains, he heard it, the soft creak of the floorboards, the shuffle of feet just outside his door. Max held his breath, heart pounding. The door slowly creaked open, and in the dim light he saw them, his bandmates, standing still in the doorway. But their eyes were empty, hollow like the figures they'd seen. They were no longer his friends, and behind them, in the shadows, stood the tall, shifting figure that had been haunting them all along. Max never made it to the next tour, and Sunsets was never heard from again, but fans still swear they see shadows moving on stage at their old venues, the outline of figures lingering in the darkness, waiting for the next act to begin.